Changed my shirt. I was already in bed. I don't really know what to say. But then I'm really tired of doctors right now. The bleeding thing is still going on. But I'm just so tired. Most of the stuff, I've stopped even thinking that a doctor would even be even remotely helpful at this point. Because all they do is make it worse and keep doing the same things and being like, hey, if we try the same thing again, it'll work. Except the last one was doing this and trying to insist that I get Mirena. Yes. For an issue that fluctuates and goes from bleeding through layers of clothing, bleeding too quickly for a pad to even really soak up, to the point I have literally learned to walk doing Kegels. And, sometimes right after a particularly heavy bleed, it'll lighten up for like a few hours, maybe a day, if I'm lucky. I've just given up at this point. Mirena isn't even, it isn't even guaranteed helpful for people who don't have an issue like mine. But she is on that. I had to explain myself every single time in detail why, and I had to know things most people don't know. And every single time it was this was her technique for getting people to agree. Force them to justify themselves every time they go to see her. I'm tired of it. Every single doctor I've gone to has their own agenda. The one before her basically wanted to dissect my uterus. And I just want the damn thing taken out. I'm just take it. Take my ovaries. Take my uterus. This isn't going to stop as long as they're in there. I mean, unless, you're going to test me and, for something that I haven't been tested yet and be like, hey, is this the physical cause for this? I mean, I'm not the first woman in my family line to go through this. We know what triggers it. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's the physical thing that allows this to happen. But I'm not the first woman in my family to be so separated from her children and cut off from them. And have this happen. It's the longest anyone survived it. Whenever it's happened. But last time this happened, I guess it's easy to remember that blood transfusions are relatively new. It doesn't help that I run low in iron, even whenever I'm not bleeding. So, even before all this, I would always test, low, side of normal, or just low, and they'd be like, take some iron pills for a little while. And that was with a diet high in iron, because as a teenager, they're like, oh, we're not going to test for why this happens, we're just going to take care of the symptom. We don't care what's causing it. Doctors today are worthless. That's where I'm at right now. I just feel like so many doctors in this world are just... A nurse is so much better than they are. Because they actually try and do research, and I've actually had a nurse practitioner, I preferred her to a doctor, because she legitimately tried. Did research. If it was above her head, she wasn't afraid to ask for help, but she was what my doctor should have been. And isn't, and wasn't, and just... I can't this point, I just think doctors are worthless. I mean, and even the thing with wanting to test my blood, which hasn't been done yet, for antibodies against other things, because I had an alarming amount of antibodies against blood, and that was only after one transfusion. And it was why, whenever I went in for the non-emergency one, that, because I was dangerously low, but it wasn't like an emergency situation, a while back, where they wanted me to get tested afterwards. Apparently it was only supposed to take like a couple hours, but it took almost 24, because we had to wait for the blood, because apparently they had to order special blood. I'd only ever had one transfusion, and that was the emergency one, and it had already gotten to this, so they were like, abnormal amount of transfusions. I basically had the antibodies as if I had like consistently been getting transfusions for years, and I haven't. So like, yeah, this needs to be tested for, and my doctor was such a tool. She couldn't even just... Woman didn't even know what she was fucking doing. I can't even... Saying why the hospital wanted me to, I guess, see a specialist or something, she should have just been like, you know what, I can do those tests here, because it's a fucking blood test. I mean, shouldn't any doctor know how to test for antibodies against different things? Like, people shouldn't have to go to a specialist just to find out what's going on. That's supposed to be your PCP. Specialist is supposed to be if you have something, like Hashimoto's. But, like, at this point, if I've got antibodies against other things, is it Hashimoto's? Because there's other stuff. Like, there's a condition where your immune system attacks everything. Like attacks multiple parts of your body at once. There's different ones. Some of them, yes, also attack the thyroid too. For now, the diagnosis is Hashimoto's, but I'm like, well, what else can be going on? And no doctor has taken their head out of their ass to check. So I've just avoided them. I've just avoided going. Because I'm so tired of the doctors. It's exhausting. You can't just... If you've never had to do it, you can't imagine. Half of them think that because I have PTSD, they have open season to bulldoze over me, because Arizona has an extreme stigma against any mental health diagnosis. And the other half have their own agenda. Both actually have their own agenda. Literally, the few doctors I've met who are worth anything, the only flaw in them was that they weren't mine, and that insurance wasn't going to cover them. I've tried. It's not like every doctor I've ever met has been horrible, just most of them. In fact, growing up, I learned doctors lie, doctors don't care, a variety of things. But literally, this has gone on for years, since I lost the boys. At this point, I can feel, like, the difference in the different pains and what they mean. Like I told Jean earlier that I was going to start bleeding, because I could literally feel the lining of my uterus ripping itself off. Coming off, like a demented, fleshy Band-Aid inside of my abdomen. Lower, At this point, because of how many times I've been poked and prodded while in pain, I can tell you, hey, you know what, my ovaries hurt. And I can be completely serious, and I can tell you which one, and sometimes it's both. It doesn't surprise me with what's going on. It shouldn't surprise anyone. Nobody is supposed to bleed like this for this long. Nobody is, just nobody. And at least at this point, I have times whenever it's just everything the doctors tried made it worse, and I'm just tired of it. At least at this point, I get like brief reprieve, but even that isn't really a reprieve. Because whenever I'm not bleeding, I still have to wear a pad because, you know, my hormones are so fucked up that, you know, other stuff happens there, you know, because whenever a woman is, her hormones are fucked up, she doesn't just bleed. If a man went in with a problem even remotely comparable to this, their response would not be, let's try this parade of pills that is the same damn thing, or supposed to do the same damn thing, that isn't working. And then just, let's try this, oh, let's dissect you. I want to do basically what amounts to a dissection on a part of you I've already tested, and decided that this isn't the problem, and instead of moving on and testing for something else, when there is no indication that this is necessary or even helpful, I just want to cut your balls open. Will you let me do that? Will you let me cut your dick open? No? Okay, well then I'm immediately going to be so totally unhelpful because you won't let me do the thing that I want to do. Because I have my own agenda. That's what doctors are like. That's what it's been like for me to deal with them. I tell them no on the one thing that they want to do. Don't actually need to do, but want to do. And somehow feel entitled to do. And because it's not beneficial for my health. It is the opposite of beneficial. And it's not necessary, and doctors just, what I've learned in life is that doctors don't like that. That doctors can be as selfish as anyone else, and sometimes more so. But I've also learned that they're not always that way. Just apparently the ones my insurance will cover. And, you know, I've reached my limit. I can't do this anymore. I can't keep on trying to find doctors that aren't like this. I've just decided I give up. I can't find a doctor that's not going to try to either experiment on pieces of me and not call it that, but call it something else, or just wants to, cut me open and see how I tick, or, something macabre like that, which is exactly what it is. A doctor like that may call it something else, but that's what it is. I grew up with this. I grew up with so much of this. And it was always coming at me, and my grandmother made sure it did. I mean, I had to go to school with a heart monitor. It got to the point I actually lied to the doctor. Just so that they would stop. It wasn't a very good lie, but thankfully, it was a lie that they filled in their own blanks for. I told them that instead of telling them that the heart palpitations were so fast, I couldn't push the button, because they were threatening to put me on something even more invasive, and I had to go to high school like this. I was already pariah. I didn't want to do this, and this would make it harder for me to go to the only place that I felt even remotely safe in, the world. So that's what it would have done. It would have taken that from me and made me even more different. I wasn't gonna do that. So I lied. I told them that I was just leaning up against the desk, and while this did happen a couple times, it didn't happen as much as I told them that it did. my height made it vaguely believable. They kind of went with the every time. The truth of the matter is, whenever the palpitations did happen, whenever the abnormalities did happen, there was no possible way for me to push that button in time. There was no possible way. Even like today, they still happen. Years and years later, it still happens from time to time. I'm not going to go to a doctor about this because I know the response, and I don't have a good history with that response. You tell them there's no possible way I can press that button. And here's the thing. I know my heart is working harder than it's supposed to. I'm an active person. I don't look like it. But I'm an active person. The heart is a muscle. When I lay down, it's not supposed to beat that hard. When I move to get up or anything, it's not supposed to beat that hard. But because I'm fat, this doesn't raise any alarms with anybody, no red flags, because they just think, fat people, this is supposed to happen. But it's a little different if you're active. Your heart may beat work a little bit harder, but mine's working quite a bit harder than it should, given that I'm very active and, it shouldn't. And it never did before all the bleeding and stuff. But now it's ignored because I'm fat. So anyway, that happened whenever I went in to make sure that the anemia wasn't too bad. They hooked me up and stuff, and yeah, I had to get seen and all that. That was a little while back. I've just kind of given up. I'm like, as far as I'm concerned, if I need help, I know where an urgent care or hospital is. I just give up on doctors. I just give up. Because the only time I've ever had a decent doctor is basically playing Russian roulette with the same sort of situation. If the situation, I think it was 4 years ago, went any different, was it 4 or 5 years ago? If that had gone any different, I would be dead. So many situations I'd had before with the hospitals were so horrible, and they would have completely missed anything obvious like that. It wasn't the first time paramedics had been cruel to me either. Because I have a diagnosis, and that automatically makes them think that they're entitled to treat me as less than a human being. They're not the first ones to do that. A lot of people do that, despite the fact my only diagnosis is PTSD. Some of them, a while back, there was some viciousness that came, because there was one of the hospitals here in particular had the old diagnoses that my grandmother pushed. Eventually, they were like, nope, doesn't have this. But they still had that. That fueled some viciousness there. But even then, that was no excuse. It wasn't even an excuse for the stuff that they were saying it was for. One of the hospitals that did that is no longer allowed to treat people who have diagnosis. They've lost any sort of license to be able to, because basically they were so horrible. But there's still horrible stuff that happens regardless. It's just that happened for quite some time until it happened where someone with enough money could pay someone to care. So, I'm just done with doctors right now. I don't want to deal with it. I know where to go if I need help. But I can't do this anymore. All of them just... Every doctor I've ended up with can just go suck it. Can't say that to any of them, but even the specialists have been horrible. This last OBGYN is horrible. I thought I could make it work, and I wanted to make it work. I thought, well, maybe next time I'll go in with a recording, and then I realized I was avoiding her before I was even realizing it. It's well, I know why I'm avoiding her at least. It wasn't a mystery. It was just, I don't really want to go because of how she is, because of her behavior, because I can't go without being harassed about a procedure that doesn't even make sense for the problem that I have. I did the research. Mirena isn't helpful for this. Mirena is not meant to be used for this. Birth control in general is not meant to be used for this. And they do it anyway. It's not meant to be used for this. And it doesn't work. The only time it has ever worked is for less extreme cases. And even then, it's not really a solution unless, they just don't want kids or something. And she's so convinced that I should just not have this taken out no matter what. She's been obsessed with the idea of me one day having another kid, and I'm no. I may be the one to survive the longest through this, but no one this has happened to has gone on to have another child. No one in my line. No woman down the line has had that happen and gone on to have another child. And I'm willing to bet it is not just because they died. It did take months for them to die. They could have gotten pregnant during that time. While this is happening, my body won't let that happen. I'm willing to bet that. You can't really get pregnant if your uterus is constantly doing this. And your hormones are that. My body would terminate the fucking pregnancy even if it did happen. Maybe even before I even realized that it happened. This isn't... I can't have any more kids. It's not going to happen. And I'm tired of everyone trying to decide that this is going to happen. Just because this is supposed to soften the blow that the world just sucks. And that what happened to me and my boys was wrong. So I'm supposed to magically just have another kid, and this is supposed to be the balm on that open wound. And, instead of just facing the fact that this was wrong, and is a wrong that should be righted, that, there should, because this is actually something that's supposed to happen, but the world doesn't work the way that it's supposed to. And that's actually more of an excuse for some people than it is a realization. Because we all have the power to change how the world works in our own little ways. We don't have to just go along with something because that's the way the world works. We all have the power to change it. I can't change them, though. I can't control anyone but me. But they can control not making fucking excuses about whatever role they have to play in any part of it. The thing of it is that it's easy for most people to see that what happened to me and my kids was bullshit. Anybody who looks even remotely at it, it's pretty easy to see. It was easy for the people in that courtroom to see it. My lawyer actually told me everyone here knows they don't have a case because there's nothing here. But this judge won't care. This was like the story of my life the entire time. This judge won't care. This person takes, knows that this is going on and is a clerk of court and does this in pre-trial, which wasn't really a trial. It's just, because there was no trial. It was family court proceedings, but this was where you, like, meet with a clerk who, like, takes stuff down before you go in. I was not allowed to give any sort of feedback here. And my lawyer actually, whenever I tried, the clerk actually shut me up. Because apparently, since I was the person that had the kids whenever this happened, I must automatically be this horrible person that needs to have all this horrible shit happen. Nobody cared to actually look. What they cared about was to make assumptions and retaliate for those assumptions. I'm pretty much not just done with doctors, I'm pretty much just done with the human race at that point. I give up. And tomorrow I'll still get up and be like, checking to see if anybody else needs me. But for tonight I reserve the right to just say, you know what? I give up. There was so much crap that happened before anyone actually bothered to look and see. And even still, no one who looks and sees that it was bullshit wants to do anything to even try to actually fix it. They just want me to accept it and have another child. Or just accept it in some cases. That's not going to happen. I will literally die before that would ever happen. Except I'm not going to be a suicide case, like many parents are. And I can't honestly blame them, because, they say there's no greater pain than losing a child. But I think it does get worse. Losing a child not knowing if they're alive or dead. It gets worse. Because they're out there somewhere and you don't know. I hate to be cruel, but if they're dead, at least you know. If they're alive, you don't know. They could be suffering somewhere and you wouldn't be able to help them because you just don't know. You don't know where they are. You don't know who they're with. And my experience in the system wasn't exactly stellar. Most people's isn't. I don't know a single person who's been in the system who has great things to say about it. Everybody has at least, even like someone who got insanely lucky. You're lucky if you only have 2 or 3 stories. 2 or 3 experiences that you can tell people about the horrors that can go on. That's considered lucky. That's considered less bad experiences than other people. As far as I'm concerned, the whole goddamn world is broken. And I can't fix it. I can't bring my kids home. And I can't make people care about fixing it. No matter what I do, it took so much work to get anybody to even look. And nobody who has wants to do anything about what they see. Of course, then you've got all the people who say, oh, I'm not going to look because I already know what I'm going to see. No, they don't. Those are always the ones who are just not looking because they're cowards. Somewhere deep down they know they're not going to see what they say they think they're going to see and what they act like, with the excuse that this is what they presumably would see. Somewhere deep down they're not looking because they know that this challenges their reality. That's the basic psychology that you can read in a book. People are fucked up. The goddamn human race is fucked up. In the absence of my children, I have learned to hate humanity. I have learned to hate every person involved in what happened. I have learned to hate them. I have learned it is possible for me to want to strangle someone with my bare hands and still feel that that is not enough. And then the same thing feel horrible. Because this is something that is wrong. Not because not because of my deep abhorrence for it, but because it is wrong and I know this, and I should feel ashamed. Before this, that wasn't a thing. I've always had a deep, every time I defended my little brother before Mom died and we were separated, on the playground, punch somebody or something, I'd always cry afterwards. Like, I'd just go into the bathroom afterwards and cry, or, I'd hold it in, get home, then I'd cry. Not because I liked these people, or should feel bad for it, but because I hated anyone hurting, and I didn't like to be the cause of it. Even if it was something that would stop the hurting of someone else. I've never been that person who enjoys this sort of thing. I've never been that person who has a laundry list of people that they wish would jump off a cliff, and earnestly wish would jump off a cliff. But I've learned in my suffering, which is not a choice by any means, to hate. Truly and completely. I have learned to hate. You don't know true hate until you sit where I do. Or maybe it's just another level of hate and it's all real, I don't know. All I know is, as much as I love my children, as much as I felt holding them in my arms, as much warmth as overfilled, that is how much I hate them. And my pain is indescribable. There is pain, there is fury, there is anger, there is hate. Mostly there is pain. As much as I hate them, it hurts more. It's like walking around with your heart ripped out. And that's the tame version. There's literally no way to really even begin. That's me attempting to begin. But then there's really not a good way to explain how much I love them either. There's not really a measurement for that. Well, there's not really a measurement, I guess, for how much it hurts or how much hate I feel. I can say one is more than the other, but there's no way to tell. As much as I love my children, hate has changed me. It's created something inside of me that frankly scares me, because part of me wants the earth itself to open up in a fiery chasm of death and burn them slowly. Part of me wants their lives ripped apart, piece by piece, until they beg for death. Half of the reason I hold on is my loved ones, and the hope that one day I may see my kids again. The other half is spite. Because of how eager those people were to get rid of me and my voice, or the possibility I might ever even have one. The possibility what happened there would ever be anything anyone else cared about. So yeah, that's hate. It's what it feels like. It's corrosive and horrible. And if you let it, it'll do a lot more than that. There are people who are different. People who are better than that, but they're so rare. And they're so very precious because of it. But most of the human race, as far as I'm concerned, can go screw itself at this point. Because without my kids, this world isn't worth saving. It's really stupid, isn't it? Because growing up, I was that idealistic kid. I wanted to save the world. My greatest dream was basically to change it. And to the point, I just played this song over and over. I didn't even understand most of it because most of it was in Japanese. But that's why I did it. Because that was my dream. My ultimate dream. No matter what I did. As far as like for myself or anything like that, or because I enjoyed it, or to make money, no matter what, it all came down to wanting to change the world. That was my thing. I wanted to change the world. I wanted to make it a better place. I wanted to save people that needed saving, and now I just think I was so horrified when my god sister said she just watched the world burn. I'm not so sure I'd lift a finger to save it. A world without my kids isn't worth saving. And tomorrow, I'll wake up and I'll feel horrible about that. And I'll go on trying to help people with information and stuff anyway. But these are the feelings that are less acceptable. Because if people know you feel this way, I don't even know how they'd even react. Probably judging, or I don't know, something. But this is how I feel. It doesn't feel nice to feel this way. It took years to get to that too. But at this point I could watch the world burn. I couldn't watch everyone in it burn. But I could watch the world burn. And here I am, I feel like I'm pretending to still be even a shell of the person I was. Because here I am passing on information to help other people do what I'll never be able to do. Hold their kids. What I don't get to do. Get something resembling justice. Get the case looked at by someone. Get it somewhere where someone will see it and care. And I can't get anyone to do this for me. But I can give them information in earlier places, in things where people are more likely to help them. But at this point, people just tell me I have to accept it. Or they expect someone else to do something, but that someone else never does. Somewhere, it feels like I'm just holding on to a person who doesn't exist anymore. I wouldn't burn the world. Wouldn't cause it, but would I stop it? No, not anymore. Before, I wanted to. I wanted to stop all the wrongs in the world and do something about it, and I was a stupid little girl, wasn't I? You can't save a world that doesn't want to save itself. A world that can excuse this sort of shit. Where people will even use all sorts of excuses like, this is America, that can't happen here. This is the USA, land of the free, this isn't allowed to happen. Instead of looking to see that it is, and yes, there are laws that are supposed to stop it. But if those laws aren't enforced, nothing happens. It doesn't work like that. If it's not being enforced, exactly what it's supposed to protect us from happens. And people are stupid, and there are a list of people I would want to save, but the truth of the matter is, this time without my kids has made me different than I was. And in trying to help other parents, yeah, there's still some echo in there of the person I used to be, but there's also the me that just would stand and watch while the world burned. Because it's not worth saving. Who am I saving it for if not for my children? Who would I save it for if I could? If not for my kids. There's no reason. And a world without them isn't worth anything. At all. I can only do what I can. For who I can. But the information I have doesn't work without people to help you apply it. And I don't have those people. I don't have lawyers who are gonna take this to court and say, we're gonna actually fight this. And be like, hey, you know what? This was a miscarriage of justice. This judge did things that are against the law. And this decision, was against the law. We're gonna fix this. Nobody does that in real life. Heroes don't exist. the little medal I have with a true hero on the back, because my art teacher did that in high school. It's a lie. When you grow up, you learn people are cowards. They'll see someone, everybody's just watching the world burn. That's why I won't do it, even if I feel like it. Because everybody's just watching the world burn. Saying someone else will save it. Someone else will do something. And they're just watching innocent people burn. But it's the people standing off to the side doing nothing I'd watch burn. And there's a whole lot more of them than people trying to do something about it. If everyone who just stood off to the side and didn't do anything about it did something, or just didn't just stand and watch whenever bad shit went down, the world wouldn't be so damn shitty. But yeah, tonight, I'm just gonna I have nothing else to say. Nothing else to say that I haven't already said. I mean, I could, but I'd just be reiterating. And I'm tired.